Hi everyone, I'm going to be presenting on Edward Ford and his theory, responsible thinking process. So first, who is Ed Ford? He was a social worker from Arizona, and before that he was in the US Navy, worked in the steel industry, and taught high school. After teaching high school, he went on to get his master's in social work, and that's when he started working on this responsible thinking process. RTP was developed in 1994 to help children behave responsibly. And he figured that to do so, children have to be taught how to think responsibly. Responsible thinking process, what is it? In short, it teaches students how to respect others. RTP is designed to teach students to learn how to achieve their personal goals and needs without interfering with the goals of others. It's based on the perceptual control theory, which suggests that people control their environment through their behavior. RTP encourages students to take responsibility of their actions and think through what they're doing. The goal of RTP is to teach respect of others. So the responsible thinking process is based on this idea that students are in control of themselves. They can control how they behave, and the way that they behave is based on how they are perceiving their environment in that moment. So if they are upset about something, if they're perceiving something as upsetting, they are more likely to behave poorly or react in a negative way. Or if they are feeling like they don't have control over something, or maybe they're perceiving the rules differently than they should be. But this responsible thinking process emphasizes that no matter what the reason is for students' behavioral issues, they are able to think through why they did what they did and apply that to how they will behave moving forward. So the key components of RTP. Number one, the goal is to focus on how students can achieve their goals without getting in the way of others who are trying to do the same thing. So that is that's the idea of respect. The goal is to have students respect other students. When a student is being disruptive and disrupting the learning process for all students in a room, they are not being respectful of the other students' time. So the goal of responsible thinking process is to help students be respectful of other students in the way that they behave. Number two, this unique classroom discipline process is both non-manipulative and non-punitive. It is not a system with punishments, rewards, or warnings. So I'll get into this a little bit more later, but with responsible thinking process, it is not the set of rules by which your school is run. It's not your classroom rules. It is an approach to how you might enforce those rules or encourage good behavior. So a rule might be that students do not get up out of their seats because it's disruptive. RTP is what you would use when a student gets up out of their seat. And number three, RTP believes that to address behavior, one has to address the thinking. To do that, a teacher asks questions instead of telling the students what to do. And we will get much further into that later, because the big thing to know about RTP is that it is a series of questions that you will ask your students when their behavior is not ideal. This question asking process helps students understand why they've done what they've done and how that compares to the rules that they are supposed to be abiding by. So think it through. This is basically the sum up of those key components. We are trying to help our students think through what they have done and how they can use this new knowledge going forward. The responsible thinking process, created and developed by Edward Ford, is a school-wide discipline program that teaches students how to reflect on their existing perceptions. That was in a dissertation Andrew Reinberg did on RTP and its implementation. So thinking it through, the goal here, once again, is for students to answer tough questions that allow them to understand, okay, why did I do this? How is what I did different from the rules? Where do I want to be? Is this helping me get there? Those kinds of things. So let's get specific. ResponsibleThinking.com has all of the information you could possibly need. For the next few minutes, we're going to talk about what the creators of RTP recommend for maximum success. So, ResponsibleThinking.com is a great resource if you are intrigued by RTP, if you think it might be something that you want to know more about. I would definitely recommend going to that website because it has truly everything you would need to know. So imagine a student discipline program that actually teaches students to take responsibility for their own behavior. That is crucial here. We want our students to take ownership of their behavior, take responsibility of what they've done, without in any way trying to control them or do something to make them change the way they behave. And imagine a discipline program where there are no rewards, no special treats, and no punishment. No punishment. Students are taught to monitor their own behavior by taking responsibility for what they do. And here's where we get back into the questions. Rather than telling students what to do, why not ask them what they are doing in relation to the rules or the standards of where they are? So that is important, that little relationship there. What are they doing in relation to the rules or standards? That's where you have to have your students compare what they just did to what the expectations are. So they got up out of their seat. What are you doing? What are the rules? The student is out of their seat. They know that the rules are that they need to be in their seat and they need to make that relationship in their head. So how should we question students? Instead of judging, lecturing, or punishing students, we need to foster responsibility by helping students understand their own thought process behind their behaviors. Here are the questions recommended by ResponsibleThinking.com. So these are specific to RTP. These are the recommended questions. What are you doing? What are the rules? What happens when you break the rules? So that goes back to what I said about how this is in addition to the set of rules you have for your school. So you already have those rules in place, and this RTP is what you implement when a student is not following the rules. Is this what you want to happen? Where do you want to be? What do you want to do now? And what will happen again if you disrupt again? What will happen if you disrupt again? So that is an important last question because that is allowing the student to think about what has happened now, think about what they know about the rules, and tell themselves, if I do this in the future, what is going to happen? It just helps with, honestly, like a sort of metacognition when it comes to behavior. So students can know why they're doing what they're doing, how it relates to the rules, and what's going to happen if they continue to do that. It's also important, I didn't put this in the slides, but ResponsibleThinking.com talks a lot about how a lot of this process is for the purpose of helping students create plans for their future. So don't just ask the questions and be done with it. Help your students figure out how they are going to not engage in this behavior in the future. So in practice, here are just some examples of other schools that have used this and what they recommend, what they're all about. So a school in Williamston Community, their purpose for using RTP is so that students are learning to be independent, to be self-disciplined, to set goals and develop plans to achieve those goals, to take responsibility for their behavior, to use reason and cooperation to solve their problems, to resolve conflicts and solve problems on their own. So these are very valuable life skills. I think that is, in my opinion, the most valuable piece in responsible thinking practice, because you are teaching your students life skills. They need to learn how to be self-disciplined. They need to know how to solve problems on their own. They need to be responsible, take responsibility for their actions. All of those life skills will benefit them so much in the future if they can have a good grasp over them now. Now, St. Anthony's Canossian Secondary School recommends that teachers ask their students the following questions when a student exhibits disruptive behavior. So these are not exactly like the questions recommended on the responsible-thinking.com website, but they are similar, and this school in particular has adjusted the questions to work as best as they can for them, and these are those questions. What were you thinking about when you exhibited this behavior? What have you thought about since it happened? Did you do the right thing or the wrong thing? Who has been affected by what you did, and in what ways? How can you fix things up? And what can I do to help you? I really like this question, the what were you thinking about when you, and what have you thought about since it happened? And then I also like the emphasis on how their actions have affected other people, because that really revs up the respect factor. These are my references for this presentation. Again, if you would like to know anything else about Responsible Thinking Process by Edward Ford, please go to responsible-thinking.com, because they have so much information. I think this is a very valuable theory to put into practice, because again, like I said before, these are extremely valuable life skills that your students will have forever if you can instill them at the right time. Thank you so much, and have a great day.